I get excited, but not sexually. If I'm caning somebody, oh my God, there's nothing more gratifying than just looking at your work. When you've got those welts that are all straight, all even, stop there. There's nothing better.
Sherry, whereabouts are you based?
Swindon.
How did you get here today?
My slave brought me. One of my slaves, my lifestyle slave, brought me.
What does that involve, being a lifestyle slave?
Well, it means that he doesn't pay tribute, but he's at my beck and call. So he doesn't have a choice with anything. He wears a collar. It's stainless steel with my name on it, and it's got a padlock, and I've got the key.
What do they get out of wearing a collar? What is the kind of appeal, do you think, for those people?
I think it's because it makes them feel owned, like my slave is owned by me, and he likes the world to know. Not an awful lot will wear a collar all the time like he does, but it makes him happy, and it certainly makes me happy.
Tell me a bit about what life was like growing up for you, Sherry.
I was born in Gibraltar because my father was in the forces. So we travelled around a lot, and then I was sent away to boarding school. I qualified as a hairdresser, and then I did some modelling. Then I had my first marriage. That was definitely a mistake, and shortly after we split up, he died. The second marriage, he was very controlling and abusive. And the third marriage, he was mentally abusive and controlling, had lots of affairs. And I was a bit like a shrinking violet. I kind of allowed him to control me because I don't think I'd ever had the chance to bring out the real me. So I had no idea that I had a dominant side. Back then, I was like a dowdy little dormouse.
And now?
And now I'm not. Now I'm far from being a dormouse.
How old were you at that point, and how did you then get from that point to getting involved in your work as a dominatrix?
I think I was 59 when he left. It was a huge shock, so it took me a while to get over it and come to terms with it. I did actually just take to the sofa and stayed there for nearly 3 months. And then when I kind of pulled myself together, I realised I had to do something. I was working part-time as a chef, but I wasn't earning enough. So I knew I had to do something. And I was watching the television, flicking through the channels one night, and I came across this documentary about phone sex. And I thought, oh my God, I can do that. And so I asked my children, I said, look, how do you feel about me doing this? They've always been really, really supportive. And they all said, well, my youngest son did say, Mum, I've only got to say the word sex and you go bright red, which was true at the time. And I said, well, I'll get over that, which I did. And so that's how it sort of began. I found a company I liked and they took me on. And I did that for quite a while. And then I started to realise that I would say about 90% of calls wanted some sort of domination. One night I went downstairs, because I always worked upstairs in my bedroom because I didn't want anyone to hear. But I used to go downstairs to get coffee or something like that. And I remember saying to my daughter about the domination thing. And she said, you're doing it for peanuts on the phone, why don't you do it for real? That was it. Yeah. So that's how I kind of started.
And tell me a bit about setting up your work as a dominatrix. What happened from there, and what was your first client?
I don't like the word client, so they're either sissies, slaves or subs. a lot of DOMs do call them clients. It's just that I've got this thing that that means that I'm giving a service, and it's too close to sexual, even though if you go into a hairdresser's, you're a client. But I don't know, with what I do, I'm just very aware that I want people to understand that this is not a sexual thing. And so every little thing that I think, oh, I don't know that sound, I change it.
And why do you call them sissies, slaves, subs?
Well, sissies are because they like to dress up in little pink, fluffy, frilly dress and do the housework. They're maids. They're whatever they want to be, really. So apart from the fact that they like to be dressed as sissies, they like to be humiliated as well. So that's why they're called sissies. Subs are submissives. So they're not quite slaves. They're just submissives because they like to sort of like be submissive to you, on their knees, doing whatever, cleaning your boots. Whereas slaves are more, it's more like the gimp type thing where they do as they're told. They don't have a choice in stuff, and so it's just that slight difference between them.
What was your first experience of being a dominatrix? Do you remember who the first person was, and what was it like for you kind of stepping into that world?
Okay, the first one I ever got, it was actually one of my callers, and he was a sissy, and he asked if he could come down for a weekend from London. So he came down. He was very, very handsome, turned up in a really nice suit and took me out for dinner, and let's call him Martin. And he was Martin when we went out to dinner, very confident. We went out for dinner, came back, and then he asked if he could go and get changed. So he went up, and I said to Amy, he'll come down dressed as a maid now. Well, he didn't. He came down in a little pair of black leather shorts and a big thick collar. I mean, my eyes must have been popping out of my head because that's not what I was imagining. And so I knew I was sort of just dumbfounded because I suddenly heard Amy say, right, go in the utility and empty the machine and hang it out. And he went into the utility and Amy said, pull yourself together, Mum. And so he came in with the washing, which my dryer had packed up, so he was hanging it on this thing. And my daughter was looking at me and trying to mouth something to me, and I couldn't see. I was saying, what? And suddenly realised she was saying, you've got a semi. And she was right. He did have just hanging washing up. What the hell? Anyway, he finished that, and then he said, may I go and get changed? And I said, yeah, OK, off you go. And I said to Amy, he'll come down this time as a sissy maid, and then he can start cleaning. He didn't. He came down in this little red number, see-through little baby doll thing, and came up, got on his knees and started kissing my feet. Don't forget, I was a total novice to this, and I felt really embarrassed. I looked at Amy and she was looking and going, oh, God, what, you know. And then he had a lipstick in his hand and he said, could you put my lipstick on, please, mistress? So I did that. And then he said he wanted to start work. So I said, OK. So I took him into the kitchen, or her, now I would call her a she by this time. And I said, right, I'm off to bed. So we went to bed, and when I came down in the morning, oh my God, my kitchen was like a new pin. I mean, it took me 6 months to find everything, but he just worked nearly all night. And then in the morning, when he did eventually come down, he was dressed in this lovely little French maid's outfit. And then he worked all day, worked like a Trojan all day long. And by the time he left, I just knew I wanted more of that. I've found the real me. And that was it, never looked back. Still had a long way to go because I made a lot of mistakes because I had no one to turn to. I tried Googling things and, but I kind of just learnt by my mistakes. And that's one of the reasons I teach. I kind of go all through the do's and don'ts, and also teach, how to cane, because you can't just pick up a cane and off you go. There is a technique, and I'm expert.
Can you give us an insight into the technique? What is the sort of secret way of doing it that makes it work?
Okay, so one of my subs had been in the scene for about 30 years. He was like a schoolboy, and he loved to be caned. And he came a few times, and we went through it together. Taught me how to stand, how to hold the cane, never like that or you break your finger, and also where to cane. Not to stand too close or you could get a wraparound, which means that my caning is always very neat, kind of like that on the bottom. If you're too close, you can get a wraparound, which means that it's not just on the bottom there, it's right round by the hip. And the skin's very thin there. You can damage the hip bones. So you have to be careful about that. Obviously stay away from the kidney area, from the coccyx. So, there is a lot to it.
And what do the people that come to you call you?
Mistress. I don't like to be called goddess. I find that a bit pretentious. So I just like to be called mistress. Mistress or miss.
And what happens if somebody didn't call you that? Would they get in trouble?
Yeah, they would. Yeah. Unless if I'm doing a schoolboy scenario, then it's Mrs. Lever, because I'm not a mistress, or miss. I do miss. If I'm a headmistress, then it's Mrs.
Since your first gentleman came to visit you, how many people have you worked with? How many subs, sissies, slaves have you had come through to work with you?
Well, it's been nearly 15 years. I just couldn't tell you how many.
Are we talking upwards of 100?
Oh gosh, yeah. I mean, I've got regulars. I've got some that like to do the rounds, so they just come along and thanks, that was lovely, nice to meet you, and off they go because they like to just try, and that's fine. But if somebody, I don't share very easily. So if somebody comes to me and professes that they would like to be owned, they do not go to another dom. And I'm quite strict about that. But I've got quite a lot that don't want to be owned, but they will visit other doms, which is, that's okay, that's fine. Like if my lifestyle went to see another dom, that would be it. He'd be gone. I wouldn't have him back. It's important, especially, I mean, he's got tattooed just below his navel, property of Mistress Sophia. So, he is my property.
And what types of people pay for your services? Do you have men, women?
There is never a type. It can be a bin man, a high court judge. I've got them all. No females, though.
Why?
Because I believe in female superiority. I don't want another female on her knees in front of me. Why would I want to do that? Why would I want to punish a sister? I just, it makes me very uncomfortable. But there are submissive females, of course, and I get asked quite often, but I just wouldn't feel comfortable doing it. And I have to enjoy what I do, and I wouldn't enjoy that.
And what are the kind of services that you can offer the men that come to you?
Usually if they're a sissy, once they're dressed up, they like to be put to work. So they'll go in, clean the kitchen, scrub the floor with a toothbrush, anything that I can think of to humiliate them. I have a lot of foot worshippers, boot worshippers, foot worshippers. I have very nice feet. So I do have a lot that like to worship my feet. And I've got a foot slave that comes once a month and does the work. So I soaks them, exfoliates them, all that sort of thing. So they're kept in good nick. Then there's masochists that like to be punished. Caned, whipped, CBT, which is cock and ball torture. That's the closest I get to their genitalia, and that's with chrome stuff, callous teeth, which is very painful. So it's not pleasure I'm giving them, it's pain. Then there's ones that love bondage, want to be put in bondage and then caged. I've got, well, obviously loads of cuffs, got a real pair of proper police cuffs, different cuffs with chains, lots of CBT stuff, so callous teeth, which is like chrome, it's sort of like that, and it's got these screws in, and you put it on and then you screw with an Allen key all the screws into it. I've got 3 humblers. They go, the balls go in this, there's a slot, and then there's 2 things like that. So the balls go in the slot, and then it's done up, and then it's pushed between the legs, so that the length of it takes the testicles with it, but the length of it is behind the thighs. So that means that they can't stand up straight, hence the word humbler, because it makes them humble. So I usually make them walk up and down. Sometimes I say, right, go and pour me a glass of wine. So they're walking like this, or I make them walk up and down and sing Mary Had a Little Lamb. Anything that's humiliating. But, sometimes even I get surprised. I think the most unusual one was the mermaid who came along, had a blow-up pool, which we filled with water, and he had about 10 mermaid tails. So we chose one and he put it on, and then he got in the pool, flapped his tail around while I was walking around with a whip, telling him to flap it harder, and, so that was a bit strange.
A lot of the people that come to you, do they have kinks and fetishes they might not have been able to explore in other parts of their lives?
Oh, definitely. And a lot start off when they're little, dressing up in their mum's clothes and things like that. And some, they just grow out of it, and others, it stays with them until it becomes a real fetish that they can't get rid of. And so they incorporate it into their lives, or I do, because a lot their partners wouldn't understand. And most people know their partners, and they know whether she's going to say, yes, dear, of course you can wear your stockings to bed tonight, or others are just going to be revolted, and that's the end of the relationship. So I never say to anybody, talk to your partner, because they know their partner, and they know what their partner's going to accept. So they come to me.
Why do you think people like to be humiliated?
I don't know. I mean, I don't think anybody would able to go get to the bottom of that. Why? Why do they like to be humiliated? I don't know. I mean, I've got one that he likes me to bring people in, friends that aren't doms, just to laugh at him because he's dressed as a female and stuff like that. It's the same as SPH. I mean, small penis humiliation. I think it's a case of they haven't got much, they were at the end of the queue, so let's just make the most of it and be laughed at. But that's another thing, if somebody strips off and I see that it's a little mushroom, unless they've actually specifically said they like SPH, then I ignore the fact. But if somebody says, oh, I love SPH, then I will, what on earth is that? Good gracious. 1 less inch and you'd be a woman, that sort of thing. But everything I do is consensual, so I don't want to, some people have said to me, why do you humiliate them? It's so unkind. I'm doing it because they've asked for it.
And how much shame or, I guess, embarrassment have some of the men that you've worked with had about these kinks or fetishes?
Yeah, I've got quite a few that I I would say probably 60% who come to me have been on some sort of antidepressant because they can't cope with it, because they don't know what to do about it. And one thing I try to teach them is not to be ashamed, because we all have things in our lives, and as long as you're not harming anybody, then it's part of you.
And why do you do this work? Why are you a dom?
Because I love it. I mean, I love it. I plan on working till I'm 80 if possible, because then my mortgage is going to be paid. But what would I do if I retired? I can't knit because my eyes are not good enough. What would I do? I'd get old. You know, I mean, I am old, but not up here. I might look, you know, but I know how I feel inside. If I gave it up, no, I couldn't. I just couldn't.
As you mentioned, some of the men that you work with that come to you, they might get sexual gratification out of it. And I know sex isn't a part of your work, but do you get a sexual gratification out of it in any way? Or what is it that you're getting out of it?
Absolutely not. No, nothing at all. I get this churning in my head. I get excited, but not sexually. If I'm caning somebody, oh my God, there's nothing more gratifying than just looking at your work. When you've got those welts that are all straight, all even, stop there, you know, just, there's nothing better. But I have some subs, and I don't know if this is true or whether, because most females are very good actresses as far as sex goes. So I don't actually know whether this is true, but I've had several that have said to me that they've been caned by a mistress and she's had an orgasm when she's caning. I don't believe that. And if they do, they're bloody lucky. Because, you know, I couldn't even use a doxy and have one, so how I'd have one with a cane in my hand, I don't know.
And what have you learned about yourself, Sherry, through your work as a dom? How much have you kind of changed or grown throughout this period? How long have you been doing this now?
About 15 years.
And what have you learned about yourself?
What have I learned? I've learned that I'm great. I've learned that I'm clever. I've learned that I am happier now than I've ever been in my life. And to me, life began at 60. This is my happiest time. I haven't had a particularly happy adult life. I'm not blaming anybody. I made bad choices. But now, I don't want to die because I've got so much more I want to do.
And you said you wanted to continue to the point of being 80. At this point in time, do you know, are you one of the oldest dominatrix in the country?
As far as I know, professionally wise, I'm the oldest. I think there are probably one or two that just do it with their partner, but I'm out and proud. I don't care who knows it, because I'm proud of what I do. I feel I have a very valid place in society, that I help a lot of people. Now, there's thousands and thousands that would never dream of walking through my door, but there's also thousands and thousands that do. Simple as that.
What we can do is to pull the tissue out like that, or also to squeeze the single testicles a little bit like that. Or also we can take it like that, so kind of make a ring around the base and then tickle the underside like that.